Welcome to Nextcasts, the podcast of Swissnex in San Francisco. And today we have two very special guests here in San Francisco in our office. And it'll be our first podcast in a discussion with two people. We are in a different space within the office of San Francisco. So the first question that I want to ask our guest before he introduces himself is, what is in front of you now? In which space are you? What do you see?
Oh my gosh. Well, what I'm looking at is, I guess I'm in a lab called the View Lab, and I'm looking out at a view of the Bay, the Yerba Buena Island, and UC Berkeley, right across the Bay from here.
Fantastic. That was the little moment where we could do some advertisement for our office. Thank you very much, Darren. But let's start right now. And could you please introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what is your current position?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you for having me. My name is Darren Cook. I run the Life Sciences Entrepreneurship Center at UC Berkeley. It's a virtual center on campus that supports life sciences startup formation, biotech, medtech startup formation from across the campus. So anywhere where life sciences innovation is found. That includes places like the Innovative Genomics Institute, Baker Labs, Baker Bioingenuity Hub, Berkeley Skydeck, the Haas School of Business. And then I also teach entrepreneurship at the Haas School of Business.
Thank you very much, Darren. And in discussion with you, we have Eva Maria. Eva Maria, could you also introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hi, I'm Eva Maria, and happy to be here with you in this beautiful View Lab. So I'm the Deputy Head of Innovation at the University of Zurich, and I've been here in San Francisco now for about 4 months as a sabbatical visitor. At the University of Zurich, I'm working in the innovation office, where we are supporting researchers to translate their ideas and their findings into new products and services and processes that are needed in the market. And we have different offers for this. We, for example, support specific projects with funding. We do different type of networking events. And what else do we do? We also do ourselves and as well coordinate and communicate about all the different entrepreneurship fostering activities that are going on at the University of Zurich.
Eva Maria, can you tell us what is your journey? How do we become the deputy head of innovation at a Swiss university?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. So I come from I have a technical background, so I used to do engineering, and I also did research in this area. And after my PhD at ETH Zurich, I moved on to work in these public-private partnerships, actually developing new technologies to possibly be licensed by companies. And at some point, I just decided to kind of switch side, and instead of being on the engineering, optimizing technologies, being in the lab kind of position, I decided to go and work with people and support people to do great things instead. So I had the opportunity in about 8 years ago to go and work at ETH Zurich to build up a new kind of entrepreneurship center there. That's called the Student Project House. That was a fun experience. I moved to work at the University of Zurich in order to be closer to research again and really work with the researchers in this super tricky area of moving ideas out of the lab to something that can really be useful.
What about you, Darren? What is your journey?
Okay, yeah, my journey. 30 years ago, I was an engineer working on medical devices at UCSF and specifically cochlear implants. And I was a grad student at UC Berkeley in orthopedic biomechanics and realized that was not what I wanted to do for a living. So I threw it all out the window. I went to law school, and have been a patent attorney for the last 24 years. So in 2015, I really caught the startup bug and realized I really want to be working with early stage companies. So left my corporate job and started a tiny law practice supporting early stage life sciences companies. And just one thing has led to another. I started teaching the I-Corps program, which is a market needs funding course run by the National Science Foundation. And it's all evolved into now working full-time at UC Berkeley.
So it seems that starting as an engineer seems to be the right path for this career.
Well, actually, I've also had my touch on cochlear implants. I think it was in my master thesis that I was, exploring that at the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm.
Okay, so it's even more specific then. You have to work on implants.
That's where you need to start if you're interested as a listener to end up where we are at this interface between university and the market.
Yeah, so let's move a little bit to what is exactly at the core of your work, because I can imagine that for our listeners, this idea of tech transfer is a university might still be a little bit vague. So what do university do to support this translation from science to entrepreneurship? What is at the core of what are their tasks?
So, as I said before, it's to some extent about transferring the skills that are needed to do so to our researchers. So our researchers are, of course, extremely well educated, but they are educated to do really high quality research, and many of the researchers have no idea what it means to think about transferring a product or transferring an idea into a product and building a company around it and building a revenue model and actually being sustainable in the market in order to bring that solution to the users. And there are so many aspects to that, so many things that you have to learn. So that's a big part. Being there, so not all of the researchers have time to visit a course, so it's a lot about also being there to answer questions that pop up, having this information very well accessible on websites, etc. And then what we also need to do, because we believe it's important that we translate more from the university. There is this wealth of know-how there that can be beneficial for our societies and economies. We also we think that we need to promote more researchers to go this way and to at least, all researchers don't need to be founders of new companies, but you should be open to it, open to letting maybe your master's students or your PhD students go that direction. So it's also a lot about building this new mindset or new culture, and so we work a lot with role models in communication, and maybe I'll stop that for now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to come back to the skills and asking you maybe, Darren, because we are here in the Silicon Valley at the epicenter of entrepreneurship. What skills do scientists need to learn if they want to become entrepreneur?
Well, I'm biased because I teach a market needs finding course at UC Berkeley, both at Haas and for the NSF, where those are fundamental skills where really any founder, it could be a scientific founder or really anyone from any field, truly needs to understand the market before they build anything. So it's really just a different mindset about approaching entrepreneurship. So learning about the market needs before you build something. And this is teachable to anybody. So I run a special life sciences version of a market needs finding course that we typically have Berkeley faculty, grad students, UCSF faculty, grad students who learn an immense amount just over 1 week.
Mm-hmm. And would you say that there is something, what is specific about this translation of scientists becoming entrepreneur in comparison to anyone else who wants to become an entrepreneur?
I'm not sure that there's really much of a difference. I mean, yeah, certainly, you know, in some respects, because the market needs finding course that I teach, and it's called the I-Corps program or Innovation Core, we're really applying the scientific method to market needs finding, business model creation, where participants will hypothesize about different stakeholders in the ecosystem and go run experiments, run business experiments basically to find out where they're right and where they're wrong. And hopefully they're always a little bit wrong. Mm-hmm. If they're not a little bit wrong, they're not doing it right. Mm-hmm. So then they go back and iterate to some hopefully spectacular market, but it's really hard to predict. So in some sense, scientists are even better at this because they're already used to it.
Yeah. It is this try and error is kind of a scientific journey somehow. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more. Eva Maria explained to us what the University of Zurich is doing to support this translation from the lab to the market. And I was wondering if you could tell us maybe what are in your opinion, like the important factors that needs to be here to support this transition?
So at Berkeley, we have a lot of programs that support entrepreneurship. And so let me just give you an example of something that we built recently that ties them all together. What I consistently heard when I was setting up my center, I'd talk to faculty, talk to grad students, and I'd say, ask them what they're working on, and they say, we think we've come up with something really big. We think that this could be the next big thing that could be commercialized. And I said, great. We have all these programs that will help you do it. And they would look at the list and basically respond, wow, that's a lot. Like, which one should we do? Like, should we go to Skydeck? I'm like, absolutely. How about the I-Corps program? Like, that's a great idea. And consistently, they wouldn't do it. Right, they were just overwhelmed by the support, frankly, that we gave them. And so recently we've started a program where it's sort of just a fixed price menu of the best resources that we have at Berkeley. In exchange for grant funding and actual seed funding for starting a private company, we have these academic founders do a number of activities that we already have on campus. And we've just recently this year built 3 companies. It just blows me away that we have 3 companies that now exist. They have CEOs, they're fundraising, they're going to the JP Morgan conference next month, that were just ideas in a lab in March of this year.
Wow, that's very, very fast, yeah. How could you maybe talk a little bit about you mentioned the Skydeck program or the I-Corps program. If you could maybe explain to our listeners a little bit what are these 2 programs.
Okay, yeah. So Berkeley Skydeck is our startup accelerator in downtown Berkeley. I think most people don't realize that, first of all, it's a big program. We have 250 startups go through it every year. Most of them are not from Berkeley. They're coming to Berkeley because they want the resources of our campus, our faculty, our students, the research that's happening. In fact, half of the companies in the program are coming from outside the U.S. So it's a big startup supporting program at UC Berkeley in downtown Berkeley. 50 companies of those 250 that I just mentioned are actually invested by the fund, meaning the fund is investing $200,000 in each of 50 companies. We're doing 50 identical deals per year. About 10 of those 50 are life sciences, biotech, and I run the biotrack at Berkeley Skydeck.
Mm-hmm. Eva Maria, could you tell us what type of programs do the University of Zurich runs? Do they have similar approach, or is it a different one?
There is no Skydeck Zurich yet. I heard about the Skydeck Milano. We have to have a look at that, and you have to tell us about why maybe as a Zurich startup it could be interesting to go there. Mm-hmm. At the University of Zurich, we are, of course, not, we do constantly this comparison, especially here in the Bay Area, being like at the epicenter of innovation. We don't have as a developed innovation ecosystem, but we are very strong in the life science domain. So for several years, we've had our own life science fund where we partnered up with the Novartis venture fund, where we can actually invest in our own spin-offs. But I would not be, what did you say, 10 per year? That would be more like 1 per year. And then the biggest program that we have is kind of a proof of concept program where we, it's a bit similar to what you mentioned, maybe not as pushy in terms of funding a company, but we give 100 to 150 Swiss francs to our researchers, which is the Swiss franc and the dollar is at the moment pretty much on par. To develop a technology and do those final critical experiments and tests and develop like a pitch deck in order to be kind of self-sustainable after that year funding a company. If it's not funding a company, then at least like convincing other types of startup funding. It depends on also in which field that you are. And that program we call the Entrepreneur Fellowship, and we've been running that for about 5 years now. And recently, we decided to do like a pre-program to the Entrepreneur Fellowship to kind of go about this issue with finding the fit with the market, understanding what is really the issue that you might be solving with your technology before you go and build a company. Because it turned out to be a bit difficult to do that like in one program. Because once you got this 150K, you're so motivated to go out and build your company. And then you might not be very interested in finding out that actually your idea might not be wanted. So I'm very excited about this new program that we call the Innovation Grant. So it's a lot smaller program. We just give them 10,000 Swiss francs, but we really push them to go out and have those conversations. Because we're just initiating that program and working with the first projects, it's been very cool for me to have these conversations with Darren and other people who have like 10 plus years experience of working with these need finding programs for scientists.
I mean, this your statement actually underlies again the importance of knowing the market and doing this iteration before going all in with your new company. Maybe to step back a little bit of really the entrepreneurial journey and talk more from like the university perspective. Why is it so important for university to encourage this transition from the idea to really practical solution?
Well, maybe, yes, it's important. As I said before, there are so many ideas there at the university, and there are so many problems out there to solve. I mean, big challenges that we have and face as a society. So the university just has to be a contributor. I think it's not only by the wealth of idea, but also how we maybe develop ideas differently at the university and solve problems differently than at the company. So the universities are like one of the participants in innovating and finding solutions to our big problems. And the reason, so it's there, it's important, it has a role to play, and I think that we, in our positions and with our programs, we have a role to play to do this translation, because it's just not enough. I mean, you might say like, well, we have, everything is there to be found in the drawer or not in the drawer, but online, all the publications, even though some of them are, with a subscription and everything, not everything is open source. But it's not possible to translate from a scientific publication and then just go and use that for innovating. So that's why I think this translation is so important.
What is your perspective on this, Darren?
Yeah, so at UC Berkeley, we're a public institution in the state of California. The mission of Berkeley is actually research, teaching, and public benefit, right? And so it's actually baked into the mission of the public university that we seek to translate the results of the research to an enduring, long-lasting benefit for the public. So it really is coming from the top that we're expected to be helping translate discoveries in labs to get them off of the campus and into the hands of the public. So we are following up on that.
Mm-hmm. Do you see, is there a general rule on how long should the university be supporting those ideas? Just thinking about what you said, the role is to support public benefit. And I was just thinking, how can we, at some point, there is a board in those companies, there are shareholders, and how do you manage this tension a little bit between being a private company and being at the same time from a public entity?
Yeah, right. So the companies that we're starting on the campus are for-profit startups that are founded by UC Berkeley faculty, postdocs, grad students. As soon as that happens, they're off campus. Even if a lot of the work is still being done on the campus, we have programs in place that allows additional work to support a private startup, even in academic labs. It's called the Research Infrastructure Commons program at UC Berkeley. But as soon as they're founded, and as soon as they're funded by the Skydeck fund, which is a separate and a legally separate private venture capital fund, they're on their own. Mm-hmm. And so we continue to support them, but there's no continuous support at least from the university after that point.
Mm-hmm. And talking a little bit now about the challenge that you both might face in your everyday job. So you're both coming from those amazing innovation ecosystems, Berkeley and Zurich. And yes, what is for you the biggest challenge in translating those ideas from the university?
So the challenge that let me give you some examples of the 3 companies that we just started, basically from ideas in labs. One of them in electrical engineering, in-ear EEG, the postdoc in the lab is the CEO, and it's worked out perfectly. The other 2, there wasn't someone in the lab who would naturally fall into the corporate leadership position. And so now one is a medical superglue, the other is a transfection reagent. We have faculty who are realistically not expecting to give up their faculty positions to run a startup. And so there's always frequently an awkward transition between, who's running the company in the beginning and who is actually going to pursue it as their full-time job and fundraise and get the innovations into clinical trials and whatever needs to happen next. So for the 2, which didn't have a natural postdoc grad student who was going to be the corporate leader, we helped them find that person. But that's not easy. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult to find the right skill set, the right incentives, the people who are willing to work at a reduced salary in exchange for equity in a startup. I mean, it's an unusual recruiting exercise, and so that seems to be it's a challenge that we're trying to tackle.
Okay. What about you, Eva Maria?
I would agree that this is the challenge, and so as I said before, either you find that there is this aptitude in that researcher to go the way, maybe the network and the skills are not quite there yet, but you can build on a strong motivation and kind of the right personality, or you have to find somebody external. For that, we don't really have a program yet, but it's like supposed to be sorted with building. That's why the ecosystem is so important, and making sure that we early on have not only the internal innovators, but also startups, more mature coaches, investors that constantly kind of meet and get to know each other, so that these issues could be more naturally solved. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's not a smooth path.
Mm-hmm. It's more like a dirt road.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could go a little bit deeper, because you've been here at Swissnex for 4 months, and if you maybe could go a bit deeper into the differences that you've been observing between the Swiss or Zurich ecosystem and the ecosystem here in the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's still sunny right now, and I heard it's raining back in Zurich.
Important.
It is important, to keep innovating 24/7 or year round. That sun does something to it. No, but I think there is like a longer history here of like, what did you say? Working for the public benefit, that this has been, I think it's in our mission as well, but it has been interpreted a little bit differently. So, for example, we've only been actively pushing the translation and commercialization of IP for about 5 years at the University of Zurich. So there is a lot more experience here to learn from. And then what's very striking, actually, already from the very first weeks that I'm here, and I'm not the first to observe, is like the cultural differences. So it seems like here, for some reason, I think it's partly historical, and there are probably books about this that I haven't read yet. People here many people here have some key qualities that you need for innovation, like being very curious and very interested in meeting new people, independently of whether this person is from your field, is a guy or a girl, or long, short, I don't know. Hierarchy levels doesn't seem to play such a difference. So it's been amazing to like kind of observe how networking works here. So networking is really like a key component in doing business and innovating here. So you can be, it's when I observe people from the area at networking events, it's like really like using it. Talking to just anyone could have that idea that you're looking for, that next insight that you need for whatever you try to accomplish. So I think that curiosity and openness to talk to people, and then there is also something to the risk taking, which we often come back to, which. So here risk-taking seems to be also more natural, or like in Switzerland we talk about being more afraid of failing, like building a company and then it doesn't work out. What happens then? Is your career ruined? This is more a question mark in Switzerland, and here it's more seen as an experience. You learn so much if you build that company, and if you fail and you know why, that's the learning that you need to build the next company more successfully. So, and these are things that are just wonderful to observe, and it's cool to have seen it and to understand why that then makes a different innovation starting point for innovation, but it's very hard to kind of translate and like bring back home in a suitcase.
Has this state changed you?
I think I have become a better networker, I must say.
And do you think that all the startups or early stage startups should come to the Bay to experience this?
If they have the opportunity, for sure.
Yes. So let's learn a little bit more about this. Risk-taking, history, and networking. Can you confirm this, Darren? Or what is the secret sauce here?
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't have the experience of working anywhere else. So it's difficult to compare in that way. But what Eva Maria mentioned about networking, I run a speed teaming event where we have 10 people with scientific ideas and 10 people with skills, or we could just call them skills, basically, typically business students, but also some engineering students. And we just throw them together with no real sense for like any idea about how they may have anything in common. And frankly, half the meetings are probably complete duds. You know, they walk away like, well, that was 10 minutes wasted. But what's really surprising to me, so we have faculty who are participating in this all the way down to sometimes we have undergrads at the university who are now just put in a networking situation, and they're pretty disparate in terms of positions at the university, and they just love it. I mean, the response to the speed teaming event is just off the charts. And we've actually had teams, well, startups that were founded through this event. You know, two people had one 10-minute Zoom meeting. The next thing you know, they have coffee, and then they participate in the I-Corps program, and they go to Skydeck, and they raise money, and they move into Baker Labs, and this has already happened.
Oh, wow. You just mentioned, so we were talking about Skydeck before, and now you just mentioned again the I-Corps program. Could you tell us a bit more exactly what is this program? I think it's part of the National Science Foundation. If you could maybe explain to our listeners exactly what it consists of.
Yeah, so I-Corps, which stands for Innovation Corps, is based on a curriculum that was started by a professor at Berkeley and at Stanford named Steve Blank back in 2011. It was adopted by the National Science Foundation. So the curriculum is generically called Lean Startup, the idea of doing 100 market needs finding interviews before you build anything at the highest level. The NSF, the National Science Foundation, adopted the curriculum in its entirety to help support companies that it was looking to invest in through its SBIR program, grant program, Small Business Innovation Research Program, and it's just grown from there, bigger and bigger. You know, it's now been around for 12 years. The NSF puts through at a national level, they actually give grant money to startups to go through this program. Over 300 a year go through a 7-week, 100-interview program that is really transformative in terms of their understanding of the market. What I teach at Berkeley, I do teach the national program for the NSF, and for also NIH has a similar program. I teach a 1-week boot camp version of it, which Eva Maria got to watch a lot of, which is a prerequisite for even being able to apply to the 7-week national I-Corps program. So what I teach is over the course of 3 nights. It's all on Zoom. We expect teams to do 15 what we call customer discovery interviews over the course of the week, get out of the building and talk to people, testing hypotheses. And if they do well, and consistently most teams do actually this process really well, we nominate them to go to the national program.
To the national program then. And the idea is really to achieve a product market fit.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's product market fit. It's a product market fit test.
Yeah. What are the participation criteria? The participation criteria?
Oh, okay, yeah. So at least for the class that I teach, because it's funded by my center and not the NSF, it is still a prerequisite for going to the national NSF-funded program. I can take anybody. I typically take student teams, faculty teams from Berkeley, UCSF, Stanford, but I've taken teams from around the world if I have room. The participation criteria for the national 100-interview, 7-week, $50,000 grant program is much more specific. I'm not really the expert on this, but recently the NSF has required that the technology be coming from an academic lab, and the team makeup is pretty specific in that you have an entrepreneurial lead, you have an industry mentor, you have a PI that's actually there to receive the grant. We have people at UC Berkeley who know this inside and out and will assemble national teams. But recently the sticking point has been the tech provenance, meaning that the NSF is really looking for technology that's coming from a university.
And is it a program that is suitable for all industry, would you say?
Yeah, it applies, at least the National Science Foundation takes teams with technology from any of the areas where they fund SBIR grants, which is as broad as anything. I mean, it's really almost any area of technology.
And do you have maybe some examples of successful startups that have been through these programs? What was the key learning for them?
So I think a good example of this is, every team that goes through a program like this, if they're doing it right, really without exception, at some point during the 100 interviews, will have an epiphany or an aha moment where they'll say, oh my gosh, we were doing it wrong from the beginning. We should be doing this. And it could be big. It could be a complete pivot into another area, a different market, a different technology even. More often it's a iteration to find something that's a better product market fit. But the one that stands out to me is that we had a team a couple of years ago from NASA. So this is actually a team with technology coming from NASA with technology around like a switch that was going to be used in satellites, right? And then halfway through the program, they came in super excited and they said, oh my gosh, the problem is not with the switches, it's with the capacitors. I said, well, that's funny, right? Because does the switch do anything on the capacitor problem? They said, no, it's totally different. It's totally different. We want to go back to the lab right away and work on this capacitor issue because they found such a huge market need. They basically just scrapped something that they'd been working on for years in the middle of this 7-week program.
Because that's really the importance of having an understanding of the market, I guess. And interesting that and it makes me a little bit the transition to what we were just discussing before, that you can probably know what the market wants if you go outside, you're curious, and you network, which are some part of the key elements that Eva Maria you were describing about being in the Bay Area. How is early validation of the market needs done in your work?
Yeah, so as I said, in Zurich we have, or at the University of Zurich, we have this, for example, this entrepreneur fellowship program, where the young researchers are preparing to develop a company, and they are actually very well supported. So they are not on their own, but they are challenged on a regular basis by people that we have in-house for life science, and for other areas we work with external coaches. These would be people that have built companies themselves, or one person has built a company and he's also been working on the investor side. So he really knows what it means to take this risk and build a startup and go through all these validations. So what's been interesting for me is that pretty much we've been doing that you've been talking about in these programs. We have been asking these teams to go out. So in the life science, it's about talking to patients, it's about talking to the clinicians and to the nurses, maybe if it's like a med tech product. But it's not always easy, like because these people are so busy, they're so stressed. There are also other aspects. There is all the technology development, which is still not finished in the lab. So I think there is a strong value to having a structured approach, which is what this I-Corps program is all about. So really putting some speed and some pressure on these teams. To and a structured approach to do one stakeholder group at a time, and then also the peer pressure, I think, is a big thing actually, to kind of go through that process in parallel with other teams and also be inspired by the other teams and see, wow, they got all that insights from doing those 3 interviews. So I think that's been a learning for me. So all of this, as I said, it's nothing new. And I mean, your course, Darren, it's been around for almost 10 years. Actually, the business model canvas was invented in Switzerland. So we have nothing to say, but in our work, it often comes down to the details. In terms of really having an impact then, like the details in the execution and working with these teams.
Okay. So it comes down to the detail more than the big picture?
In work, well, I don't know what you mean now, but especially if you want to have impact with the teams, it comes down to the details of, for example, funding of projects, the details of the funding criteria, or the details of how those entrepreneurship programs are structured. Or as I said now, we've been doing the same, but maybe if you add some more structure, if you add the peer pressure, then the magic happens. So, yeah. And that's, so we are working a bit as a startup as well, in the way that we're trying things out and then, seeing what works, what doesn't work, and then changing a bit and iterating.
One question for Darren, one of the last question regarding being a startup. So Eva Maria was telling us they are a startup because they're iterating still and trying things out. So you've been doing this for 10 years. Do you still consider yourself a startup, or are you just now a service provider? Do you keep the mindset or not?
Do you mean with respect to the I-Corps program?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, yeah. So I've been teaching it since 2017. And that's an interesting point, because I just introduced this week, and I've been trying this out in my I-Corps class, a different canvas. So because typically life sciences companies, the application of the 9-box Swiss business model canvas is sometimes kind of awkward. Like it's difficult to know what you're going to put in the boxes. So I've come up with a new 10-box, it's 1 box better, 10-box life sciences venture canvas that really fits the marketplace realities of life sciences, biotech, medtech companies better. And it's worked super well. Yeah. So yeah, I guess you're right. We continue to iterate and find better solutions, but really using the same tool set.
Looking a little bit at the future and at those innovation ecosystem, how do you see the innovation ecosystem of the Silicon Valley developing over the next 10 years?
That is hard to predict. So, we keep growing. UC Berkeley is now #1 for venture-backed startups. We just took over that spot from Stanford in September of this year. And so with leadership on our campus that supports that push, I would just expect the ecosystem to grow into, at least at Berkeley for now, the life sciences ecosystem is very well built out. But we're also building out support for climate and AI and other areas. So I expect, at least from my view of on our campus, just continuing to build, but in different areas.
How is it with Zurich?
Yeah, so I don't want to bet on what it looks like in 10 years, but one trend that I see is that there is an interest. We're a small country. We're just 10. Oh, I'm bad with numbers, but let's say about 10 million people in Switzerland, and that's almost like how many people that live here in the Bay Area. So, and we have all these different universities. So everyone is trying to make sure that the cool ideas that are developed at the different cantonal universities of applied science and federal technology, the ETH and the EPFL Lausanne are moving out of these ivory towers. And one tendency that I see is that these ecosystems are merging more. Like there is a willingness to work more together, and there is, appreciation for that makes sense, and that we can learn. We can both learn from each other, but then also our innovators are profiting from having these ecosystems that kind of merge together and are more dynamic. So I think that's a trend that I can observe and that I welcome. I think that's also something that I've seen here. That here you're always open for collaboration if you think that you could build something interesting together with other innovators or other ecosystems. So I hope that this trend holds.
Will continue.
Yeah.
And last but not least, if there is a scientist listening to us right now, having an idea and thinking, maybe I could start, maybe this could be me at some point. I could become a founder, I'm not sure. What would be your first tip to him or her?
Maybe reach out to some other founder who's coming from also have a similar background, so you can hear a story from somebody that could possibly be you in the future. That's one thing.
Darren?
Yeah, so I get this question a lot because this is what my center supports on the Berkeley campus. We have a lot of people, scientists, faculty, postdocs, who say, look, I've got this idea and I think I could make something out of it. What should I do first, right? And there's no one answer. Probably what I most commonly will say is, hey, get some of your friends from lab and take the I-Corps class. That's a great intro to just like the basics of an entrepreneurial mindset. But many times they're even not at that stage. Maybe they should do the speed teaming event, or just network, or apply to Skydeck's Pad 13 program, depending on what stage they're at. And so the role in my office is really to tailor the advice for who they are and what stage that they're at. But probably the one that I promote the most frequently is the I-Corps program.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much to both of you for all this very interesting and inspiring insights. I hope that we will generate some entrepreneurial careers from the scientific that are listening to us. And I wish you both very nice rest of the day. And thank you again for being with us today.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Emilia.